This podcast is sponsored by Great James Street Chambers, a set of barristers' chambers renowned for expertise in criminal, extradition, immigration, family, civil, and human rights law. They have over 40 barristers and work nationally and internationally in publicly funded and private cases. They have a reputation for excellence, founded on the strength of its individual members. Great James Street Chambers prides itself as a leader in niche areas of law such as extradition, pre- and post-charge advice, sports law, and the challenging of warrants. They work with some of the leading law firms and have expertise in handling high-profile cases. For any legal inquiries, please contact their clerking team at clerks@greatjames.co.uk or call them on 0207 440 4949. That's 0207 440 4949. Hello and welcome to another episode here at The Latest with Law Simplified. I am your podcast host, Faareen Ali, and today we are joined by a special guest, someone you will recognise from your TV screens. Our guest has led a spectacular career in law and in the quiz show industry. He is a senior criminal law barrister at Great James Street Chambers with a thriving practice in crime, regularly instructed in serious criminal law cases such as murders, manslaughters, fraud, money laundering, and many, many others. He has also spent 20 years of his life in the quiz show and showbiz industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honoured and excited to present to you the quiz show legend, the one and only Mr. Shaun Wallace. Today we'll be exploring his journey from the law to quiz shows. I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, Great James Street Chambers. If you require any legal representation, do reach out to them right away. Their barristers specialise in a wide range of legal areas. Do also buy Shaun Wallace's autobiography, Chasing the Dream. The link is in the description box. It has had a huge impact on me, and I promise you it will have a huge impact on you too. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Mr. Shaun Wallace. Shaun Wallace, hello and welcome to Law Simplified.
Hi, how are you doing, Faareen? I'm good.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I had a very busy day today. I was doing some legal work today, so back to my day job because I'm taking a break from filming. And this week I'm going to fly to Australia because I'll be doing a couple of events just like this, an audience with Shaun Wallace. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll be jumping on a cruise ship at Cairns in Queensland, and that'll be taking me around the Indian Ocean, stopping at places like Thailand, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, and yeah.
Oh, wow. Can I come along? That sounds interesting.
I'm sure you've got far more important things to do, like time. So maybe next time.
Well, thank you very much, Shaun. Can I just say, I've been watching you on the telly for years and years, so it's quite a moment for me to be sharing the screen with you. I'm very excited to be interviewing you today. So I think we'll get started. And before we address your journey, just want to talk about your autobiography, Chasing the Dream.
Right behind me, as you can see. Yeah.
I've read it. It's a spectacular book, Shaun. I found it so empowering. And I think what I learned from it, Shaun, is that so long as you persevere and don't give up, you will always reach your goals. So can you tell our audiences, Shaun, why is it that you wanted to share your life story with the public?
I think it's important that if you're in the public eye, because when people see you in the public eye, they think you're born rich, they think you're born clever, they think they're born famous, but they don't really know the sort of the struggles or the backstory which goes behind all that. So I thought it was very important that people got to know, my upbringing, which are very, very humble. I'm speaking to you from a house where I grew up across the street where my original family home was. So I've lived on this road for the last 58 years. So for me, it's important to, have that stability in my life in terms of, the area in which I grew up, where people love me and respect me, and I feel comfortable in this particular environment. So for me, I thought it was important for me to actually tell that story, especially in relation to the sort of hardships and setbacks that I have endured throughout my life thus far. So it can inspire people to realise that even if you do have setbacks, it doesn't define you, and it doesn't mean to say that your future's behind you.
Very true. I found it very empowering, and I'm sure many people will relate with us. So anybody that's wanting to buy Chasing the Dream, the link is in the description box. Head over right now and buy that book, because I tell you something, Shaun, it has really left a huge impact on me personally as I continue in this journey with the business and in my legal career as well. So thank you very much indeed for sharing your life story. Now you tell us in that book that you absolutely love football. You describe it as your love affair.
Yeah.
I know that you have played semi-professionals. You've played in the Wembley Stadium. So what is it that inspired you to become a barrister then?
I used to watch programs like, and forgive me for saying this to you, Faareen, but you're far too young to remember programs like Crown Court and Ron Paul the Bailey. There were programs in the 80s, way, way, way before you were born. And I was inspired by the sort of theatre and the sort of courtroom drama, people using their sort of oral skills to represent the less disadvantaged of themselves, sometimes defending the indefensible. And I wanted to be like that. And the fact that you got to dress up in a sort of a wig and gown had that added attraction, I suppose. So I was really drawn to the law in relation to the fact that, one of the skills you have as a lawyer, as I say, is to be able to think on your feet, to prepare, to research, and to be fearless. Those are qualities which I totally admired when I used to watch those programs. And I thought to myself, why can't I be like that? That's what led a journey to where I am today.
How inspirational. And actually, you were only 11 years old, weren't you, Shaun, when you made that decision, where you were inspired by these programs and you decided that you wanted to become a barrister?
Yeah, as I say, when I joined my secondary school, I wrote to the Bar Council, and it was the very first letter which I got back. And I remember it was my very first letter, DEER. My spelling wasn't that great. And when the Bar Council wrote back to me, I was so excited. It told me what I needed to achieve in terms of getting the necessary qualifications to qualify. And I kept that letter as a source of inspiration. I had it pinned on my wall for the best part of 6 years. I thought to myself, well, why not? Even though I was a young black boy growing up in a society where there was overt racism, whereby your chances as a young black boy being a professional lawyer, doctor, or dentist was seen as a complete anathema. But I thought, why not? Why can't I achieve? And why can't I not dare to have those dreams? And I had role models growing up like everybody else. If you were to come to my home right now, I've got a mural on my wall called My Inspiration. Because as a young black boy growing up, I used to see people like Pele, the best footballer in the world, Muhammad Ali, probably the greatest sportsman of all time, Martin Luther King, in relation to him fighting for civil rights. I knew who Nelson Mandela was. And the reason why I knew who Nelson Mandela was is that my father, who though was not a literate man, he used to actually encourage me to actually be aware of the world around you. So I used to watch the news with him. And I remember watching the very first newscast on ITN in 1967. Mm-hmm. So that really inspired me to actually be aware of the world around me. I was a really sort of inquisitive kid growing up, wanting to learn, wanting to educate my mind. And I suppose that's something which has never left me. And my oldest, Sandra, who was my first big hero I talk about in the book, biggest thing she gave her young brother was the importance of reading and writing. She taught me to read, taught me to write. I was proficient at reading and writing by the time I was 6. She bought me my first law book, which I kept for a very, very long time. And I'll never, ever forget the inscription inside it. Dear Shaun, good luck to the lawyer, study hard.
Incredible.
And I love it. If it wasn't for people like that telling me you can achieve, no matter your background, no matter your circumstances, why not? Because that's the one thing which I now, being in the public eye, say to young people is that the one thing I'm always conscious about is this, that I'm not going to live forever, but the future belongs to you. Can't you be what you want to be? I could be talking to the next Prime Minister. I could be talking to the next Nobel laureate. I could be talking to the person who finally wins the World Cup for England. Ask yourself that question, why can't it be you? And tomorrow morning, I'm going into a school, because I love to go into schools to talk about my life, my journey. And people obviously are in awe, which I find a bit sometimes. I don't mind because of the fact that fame hasn't changed me at all. But I do understand the fact that people do love and respect what I've achieved, and it gives me that source, that strength, that drive to actually go into schools, go into colleges. I even go into prisons as well. I like to do a lot of prison visits. To say to inmates that yes, you're here for a reason. Yes, there is that blot on your landscape, but it doesn't mean to say that once you do leave, you still can make a positive contribution to your society. And that's why I always say to inmates that use your time wisely in prison. Don't learn to be an even better criminal. Try to educate your mind, because that's the way you stay in control of your own destiny.
Absolutely. And you are changing lives, Shaun. And actually, you post a lot of it on social media, and we've been following that. Pictures of you in school, pictures of you going to prisons and really changing lives, because that's effectively what you're doing. So thank you very much for that, Shaun.
Well, if I can change one life, I'd like to think if I can just change one life, or somebody listen to that, my philosophy, and they've taken that and not matched my achievements, but surpassed it. Then I think my philosophy was right.
Yeah.
And it's a great compliment, to be fair.
Yeah. And it continues, doesn't it? That they will go on to touch other lives as well and give back. So a great way to contribute to the society and to other people's lives. Now, you actually touched on the fact that you wanted to share your journey because you wanted the world to know the hardships that you went through. And I have to say, I salute you, Shaun. The things that you have overcome to get to where you are, it makes me believe that I can be where I want to be. Now, in your book, you talk about some personal trials. You mention that your parents divorced when you were very young, that your mum actually raised you. She worked so hard, sacrificed to give you a good life. And also,
my father played a positive role in my life, because although he didn't, I saw him every single week virtually. And that's important for a young boy to grow up, because it's important that you have a male role model to actually help guide, shape, and mold you. And as you saw in the foreword to my autobiography, I dedicate to my father, and I said, he's forgotten but never forgotten until we meet again, and one day we will.
Yes.
Obviously I came from a divorced home, but that doesn't mean to say that you should actually hang on to the sort of tragedy of divorce to basically be a reason as to why you don't actually achieve in life. My parents basically supported me and guided me. And when I talk about the setbacks, one of the most important reasons I wrote the book is because of the fact that, when it came to passing exams, it was a trial by ordeal.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned the fact that it took me 4 times to pass O-level English language. I remember 43 years ago when all my friends were going off to university and my grades weren't high enough. I just burst out into tears because I thought, that's it. I'm a failure. I was like Muhammad Ali as a kid. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a greatest. And you've got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And it's easy to point the finger of blame or suspicion in relation to when you do have setbacks in life. But the one thing I always say to people is this: the first thing you've got to look at is the reflection in the mirror. You've got to look at yourself first and ask yourself, was I good enough? Did I work hard enough? Am I good enough? All those sort of questions. And, it took a period of deep introspection and reflection and to sort of deconstruct the way in which I approached exams. Because although I had what would be termed a photographic memory in relation to reciting chapters, dates, and the like, you need different skills as you move up the academic conveyor belt. And once the penny dropped, and it dropped because of the fact that, I had the support of teachers who gave me that encouragement, who basically said, look, Shaun, okay, you can do this, but, your approach needs to be modified. And, I had to look at myself, but at the end of the day, all the support and encouragement in the world will mean nothing if you don't do it yourself. So, I had to pick myself up, dust myself down, and I eventually passed those A-levels. I went to the Polytechnic of North London, which, as I say, as any undergraduate will tell you, being an undergraduate at a university or polytechnic is the best 3 years of your life. go in there full of optimism as a young, bright young thing. You leave there with a degree in your hand, and you feel that the world's at your feet. And in 1984, when I got past the bar exams, first time of asking, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, because I really did work hard. It was, and still is to this very day, the proudest moment of my life, because I said as an 11-year-old kid I was going to be a lawyer, and I became a lawyer. But the one thing that struck home to me when I got called to the bar, I don't know if it applied to you, it definitely applied to me, because I remember in the inner temple when I was looking up, seeing all the illustrious names, and I was asking myself, where am I going to be in 10 years' time, 20 years' time? Am I going to be the lawyer I hope I can be? But the one thing that struck home to me was this: all the hard work, all the success coming off the academic conveyor belt, all it had done was bring me to the start line of a different challenge. What success does. The minute you think that you've made it, the minute you think, hey, I'm going to kick back and relax, that's it, so I don't have to do any more work, that's when you're on your way down. So it's always important that you set different goals and challenges for yourself. And I'd like to think that I've tried to achieve that. You know, starting out in the mid-'80s as a young black lawyer, you know, I was one of the pioneer young black barristers, male in particular, because you didn't see much female barristers. And I see that there's been a paradigm shift in relation to the fact that the bar now embraces change, embraces the fact that we live in a multicultural society, and therefore we must reflect the profession which mirrors the society in which we live. Clients want to see and be represented by people who are like them, sound like them, who have that professional edge in terms of being able to speak on their behalf in court. So I'm proud to have witnessed and observed over that last 38 years that tremendous paradigm shift, more women coming into the bar, more women who are silks. Two of my friends, I don't know if you know them, Lori-Ann Power and Melanie Simpson, another young, bright young thing, a young boy, a friend of mine called Gary Green, they've taken silk. And that's given me a great sense of pride to know that, you know, I've seen them sort of develop and grow into being at the very, very top of their profession, because it's not easy climbing that greasy pole. Absolutely. Because the next times, you know, you slide your way down, and you've got to know how to actually grip when you get to the top. But once you get to the top, the most difficult challenge is staying there.
Staying there, absolutely. And actually, Shaun, you paved the way for people, you know, people from the ethnic minority groups, people like me to aspire to become a lawyer. The fact that you share that you failed your exams, you know, because a lot of aspiring barristers, given how competitive the industry is, would think that it's so hard to get in. But actually reading your book, seeing the height of your success empowers us and makes us believe that actually, no matter how many tests you get, you can actually, you know, go ahead and do it.
Nice of you to say that, Faareen, but I'm just I'm not the catalyst for change. I'm one of the changes. You know, the one thing I'm not going to do is hog the limelight, because there were people before me, there are people who are like me, who have used their platform in a way to demonstrate par excellence, irrespective of the colour of your skin, irrespective of the colour of your gender, irrespective of your physical ability or otherwise. You are good because you are good. So, you know, I'm just one of a cog in a wheel of people like me who basically want to inspire the next generation of people like you coming up to basically shatter that concrete ceiling, create a path which makes it easier for you to walk. Because once we eventually shuffle off this mortal coil, we're going to have to pass the torch of responsibility onto people like you, and you're going to pattern.
Thank you very much, Shaun. And actually, I've got goosebumps now. This is very motivational for me today. So after you were called to the bar, you started pupillage in 1986. You are currently at Great James Street Chambers. A huge shout out to the Chambers. They are sponsoring this podcast today. I want to say a huge thank you to them. So currently you have a thriving practice in crime. You do deal with some serious criminal cases such as murders, manslaughters, fraud, money laundering. In your autobiography, you actually share your first experience in court, in Crown Court. I think it was a bail application. Can you tell our audiences about that?
Important to realise that even the most accomplished and eloquent advocate wasn't born an advocate. You do it because you practice. And as I say, you show me a lawyer who wasn't nervous on the very first day in court, and I certainly will show you a liar. And it certainly applied to me, because I remember when I was applying for that bail, it was a hardened criminal who basically could see that I was green between the ears, and he didn't want me to represent him. But I soon changed his line of thinking when he heard my bail application, and he actually wanted me to represent him, even though, as I say, he never got bail. So that gave me the confidence to realise that, I belong here. And I remember my very first Crown Court trial, and I still got the words of the judge on my wall, where he basically said my closing speech was excellent. And that told me that, yes, I belong here. But the one thing I always say in relation to any lawyer, no matter how trivial, no matter how serious the case is, it always requires the same attention to professional detail in terms of preparation. And you're only as good as your last closing speech. So if you think you're better than then, as I say, you're doing yourself a grave disservice, and you're doing the profession a grave disservice, because you're taking that talent for granted. You should never take it for granted, because no one case is the same.
Absolutely. Now, Shaun, we're going to move on to your journey in the showbiz. You've been in the showbiz industry for nearly 20 years. And actually, it didn't start off with quiz shows. You were casted in a movie when you were 17 years of age. Can you tell us about that, Shaun, please?
Yeah, I'll never forget it, actually, because every Wednesday, when I was in the sixth form, I went to Elstone High, which is now Queen's Park Community School, which is in the northwest area of London. We used to have sort of Wednesday afternoons off, where you could actually do sports or drama, and I always used to play football. But on one particular occasion, we'd just come back from we just started the new term, because I spent that term working in the very first Burger King in Coventry Street near Piccadilly. So anyway, all the guys and girls who were in the drama school were going off to this interview to be selected for a role in this particular film. So I thought I'd just tag along, didn't think anything of it. So we all walked into this room, and the director, who was a guy called Silvio Nazarino, he just walked in and basically said, "Oh, and you?" And he put me. Didn't say anything else to anybody else. And everybody was just astonished. So the name of the film was called A Class of Miss McMichael. It starred Oliver Reed and Glenda Jackson. And it was a poor man's version of the 1967 film To Sail With Love. And I had a time on that film. I mean, people like Phil Daniels, who was in it, Quadrophenia and EastEnders fame. Patrick Murray, who was Boise in Only Fools and Horses. My dear mate, Victor Ramiro Evans, was a great singer. I had a great 10 days filming there. And I was also offered another part in a sort of BBC drama, but my head of sixth form basically told me, "Look, Shaun, do you want to be a lawyer or do you want to be an actor?" So she put a break on that completely. And, I don't have any regrets. So that was a wonderful experience, being in that film.
And if you were to be approached for a movie now, would you give it a go?
I probably would give it a go now, but not at the time, 17 or 18, because my sole focus was on one thing and one thing only: to qualify as a barrister. So, so that was a good time.
Yeah. So now your first quiz show was actually a show called The Greed. I understand, and you won that.
Very first quiz was a show called 100% on Channel 5, but my first major breakthrough in terms of winning for the first time was on a show called Greed, where I captained a team where we won £250,000. So that was my very first breakthrough. But the show I always wanted to do was Mastermind. I watched the very first pilot episode in September 1972. It was at 10:45, the graveyard slot. And I was always fascinated as a young boy growing up watching quiz shows, how people could put themselves through the ordeal of sitting in a black chair, with a bright light shining in their face, being interrogated by a daunting quizmaster with a watching studio audience with millions of people watching from the comfort of their sofa in their homes. And I was really, really enamored and impressed by something like that. And I wanted to do like that. But you know, procrastination is a thief of time. And I told everybody I was going to do Mastermind in the 1980s. But law was more important to me then. And I needed to forge a career. And, you know, alongside forging my career, I think I also mentioned the fact that I taught 4 nights a week for 14 years at Hackney College, which is important to me. But quizzing lost its luster in the sort of mid-90s, and they brought Mastermind off the air in 1997, and I thought my chance had gone forever. But when my career was going through a bit of one of the many doldrums in terms of the up and down nature of my professional career, in 2003, when they brought it back, and I remember watching the very first inaugural winner, who actually worked for the CPS. I remember watching sort of longingly as he was holding the trophy aloft in the newspaper in the Independent. I was reading, I thought to myself, I wish that could be me. I wish that could be me. Right, okay, no more procrastination. So I was the first Black person to apply in a show's 36-year history at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
In 2004. Yeah.
Is there?
Oh, incredible, Shaun. Incredible. Actually, your the clip from the Greed, where you had your first breakthrough, is actually still available online, by the way. I checked it out. You had amazing hair.
Yeah, you can see all of that. You can definitely, you know, if you actually want to see it, Greed 2001. If you just go Shaun Wallace on Greed, it's really, really good. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, I actually read somewhere, Shaun, that you would watch the Mastermind program, record it and watch it back to learn from it. Is that how you would prepare for the quiz shows?
Well, that's fair now. You know, when I first started quizzing, I used to watch all the quiz shows, and I had a library, and I still got that library of loads of tapes of loads of different quiz shows, and I would sit hours just testing myself. And I was only interested in the questions I got wrong, not the questions right. That's how you learn. So by the time it came to doing Mastermind, because at the time when I did Mastermind, I was actually practicing by myself, using my home as a chambers, because 2 years earlier, I had a series of operations on my leg after playing football, and it was very, very difficult for me to get around. So, you know, as a consequence, my work sort of dropped off, but I did have a law following of solicitors who kept my practice going. And even then I was winning, you know, loads of trials, but I really wanted to actually do Mastermind, and I was sort of combining my sort of Crown Court trials with preparing for Mastermind. And it was a wonderful time in the spring of 2004. And, you know, when I won, I just sat there. As I explained in the book, I don't think I've ever been happier at that moment when they told me I was a Mastermind champion. And they had to change the filming's ending because I just sat there for 2 minutes and tears of joy were just running down my cheeks. And they thought I was probably having a seizure. But what I was remembering is all the sort of hardship, the sort of difficult times, what my friend's going to say, what's my mum going to say, you know, because I didn't tell a soul really that I was in the grand final. And I didn't tell a soul that I'd won for 6 months because, you know, I needed to actually, because I knew that once the news broke, and I wasn't even in the country when they showed the grand final because I needed to get out because I knew that the mass hysteria, and it really was like that. And I don't get caught up in the hype because, as Andy Warhol once said, you know, you're famous for 15 minutes. Well, it was a fantastic achievement. I'm not going to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. But it's important that if you do become well known in the public eye, you've got to be able to be mature enough, experienced enough, and level-headed enough to deal with it. And I'm glad that it happened to me at the age of 44 as opposed to 24, because, you know, if you're young and you're famous, you know, sometimes it can go to your head. And once the sort of lights of fame fade, you spend your lifetime trying to switch it back on. And as I say, that's not within your control. And with me now, as I say, you know, I am fortunate and very, very blessed to have won Mastermind. But you know, if the light of fame sort of eventually fades, good luck to it.
Absolutely. Well, that was a life-changing moment. I've watched the clip, Shaun. I've seen how you were very emotional when you were handed the trophy. All of that is all online. If somebody wants to watch it, just type in Shaun Wallace and all the clips do come up. Now, before appearing on the Mastermind, you also appeared on The Weakest Link, and that was in 2001. What was it like working with Anne Robinson?
It's, I wouldn't say working with one. I was just an ordinary contestant, and I applied for that show. The one advantage I had as being a quiz contestant is because I was black. Because I was one of the, I think I was the only black contestant on quiz shows who was regularly featured on quiz shows. And because of the fact that I was black and clever with it, I didn't even have to apply for shows. So, you know, the advantage I had was that, you know, being black, strangely enough. So, you know, I'm really, really grateful for that.
And is Anne Robinson as scary as she appears? I find her very scary.
That's afterwards, because she thought I was going to win. And the greatest compliment the show paid me actually, was after I had won Mastermind, I was a question on The Weakest Link, not once, but twice.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the person who answered it got it wrong. The first time they got my name wrong, they called me Shaun Williams. And the second time they didn't know what profession I was. So that was a great compliment, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So you then went on to appear on Eggheads. And actually this was it.
Mastermind, what happened, Faareen, I then retired, because where could I go? You know, they're not going to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because they know that if I'd been on there, I'd probably win £1 million without even using a lifeline. So I decided to retire, but the Eggheads were looking for a new Egghead in 2008, and they begged me to come out of retirement. I turned them down quite a few times because I was in the middle of a trial and I could hardly say to the judge, "Oh, by the way, Your Honour, can I simply nip out to do a quiz show?" He said, "You were told me where to get off." So they were so desperate to get me on the show, they actually moved my recordings to the weekends. So I remember I played the first round against this young hotshot whiz kid who won £500,000 on a show called Duel. I beat him on the final question. They then put me up against who was then the reigning world quiz champion, and no one thought I was going to win that. You know, in the first part of the show, I was getting hammered by this guy, but I managed to turn it around and won. So there was one recording day left, and I had a trial. I was waiting for a trial to come in, and if that trial had come in, I would have given that priority. Because the one thing which is more important to me, I'm a lawyer who happens to be on TV, not the other way around. And so trying to come in, I would have pulled out, but it didn't. But there was only one recording day left. So they said to me, if you want to become an Egghead, Shaun, you got to win the final, semi-final, final all in one day. So I did. I was the only contestant out of 32 who did. So that's why the autobiography starts and finishes when I lost the Eggheads grand final, because I'm sitting in my car listening to Steely Dan's greatest hits, wondering how I managed to snatch defeat from the inevitable jaws of victory. But you know, they say every cloud does have a silver lining, because in the autumn of 2008, I didn't finish writing the book. It was originally called True to the Game. And it was only about my quizzing career. And I was going to publish it, but you know what they brought out? Slumdog Millionaire. And I thought to myself, no way my book's going to sort of survive an Oscar-winning blockbuster. But I then thought to myself, well, people don't want to know more what the face is behind the sort of so-called quizzing genius. So that's why I decided to actually talk about my life story, my life journey, my life struggles, and you know, the notable highs I've had in my life. But going back to the autumn of 2008, I then get a phone call from ITV asking me to take part in what they consider to be an exciting new quiz show concept. Turn up for the audition. They asked me 30 questions. I got 28 out of 30. They said to me, "What am I doing quizzing-wise?" I said, "Look, I've retired." I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm on Are You an Eggheads?" Because they were then showing Are You an Eggheads in the autumn. They said to me, "How did you do?" I said, "I'm not telling you. You want to see how good I am? You watch it." Then I walked out. So when they showed me losing to Barry Simmons, who I've become very good friends with in the Eggheads Grand Final on the 2nd December 2008, I then get a phone call the following day, "Can I turn up to a pub on the Grayson Roads?" When I walked in, I see to my left-hand side a row of ITV executives. I see to my right a bunch of contestants. playing this exciting new game show called The Chase. So I'm the world's first chaser.
Wow.
So yeah, I was working on that show by myself for 4 months. I had to do 3 different auditions in front of 5 TV executives. Once they were satisfied that it was a good concept, they then decided to have Mark, the Beast, the Bets. We then went up to the old Granada studios in Manchester. And on that day, the 1st of June, was the day before my 49th birthday. I was starting a murder trial that day in the Old Bailey. So the client I was representing, I managed to secure an acquittal for him in an attempted murder a year before. So I said to him, I said, look, I need to do this pilot, bro. Right, can you let me go? I said, only give me a week. The trial's lasting 6 weeks. It's only going to be preliminary matters. Can I go? He said, sure, no problem. So I went to go and see my leader, who was doing 2 Crown Court murder trials at the Old Bailey at the same time. And he said to me, look, Shaun, as long as you get the appropriate cover, you can go. So somebody in my chambers was covered me for a week. I had to pay that person £4,000. I got £100 per show for the pilot. And people might make economic sense, but I realised this show was a goer.
Yeah.
And here I am 13 years later.
Amazing. And we've been watching you, Shaun. We have been watching you and enjoying every moment. I have to say, you have great TV chemistry with Bradley Walsh.
Yeah. No, I think that's because of the fact that I'm 2 days older than him. I'm born on the 2nd of June, 1960, and he's born on the 4th of June. And I think the reason why is because he grew up in Watford, I grew up in Wembley. And we've had sort of similar working class upbringing in terms of our backgrounds. And the one thing I like about Bradley, and one thing I relate to, is that, you know, he's had to make his own sacrifices. He used to be a professional footballer, and then wanted to become an entertainer at the age of 22 after he suffered an injury. Now he had to do the hard yards. You know, he's had to sort of, you know, do gigs in front of 4 men and a dog, being heckled by the dog. So he served his apprenticeship, just like I've done. But the one thing I always say, in terms of success in life generally, is 99% luck, 1% talent. And if you're in the right place at the right time, seen by the right person who can make that difference, then once you jump from the chorus line to become lead singer, make sure you can sing, because that chance presents itself again. So, you know, it's the same with me. I was very, very fortunate. I had that bit of luck, as you all do need in terms of forging that success. But once you've got that talent, you have the talent to actually do what you need to do. So that's why I always say to people, always make sure you put your best foot forward. Always make sure your talent's on show at all times, because you never know who's watching you. That person who's watching you could make that difference.
Absolutely. And Shaun, I'm not sure if you know, but there's so many great outtakes, the Chase outtakes, where you and Bradley have such great banter. It's so funny. I've watched so many of them on YouTube. So if anybody wants to tune in, do go on YouTube. You know, it's great. It's great to see your personality. And actually, you know, I really love when you sort of break out into some songs, you start singing to, you know, contestants. I was quite hoping you might do that today, but oh well.
We'll save that for another time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're now going to move on to a quick fire round, if we may, Shaun. And I'm going to have you just clear up some misconceptions in the public about you. So can you tell our audiences, are there any misconceptions about you that you want to correct today?
I don't think there are. You know,
Are you married?
No. No, never been married, never had kids.
I think the internet tells us that you're married and you have kids, Shaun.
I know. I actually at one time was going to sue was it Wikipedia, because they kept on putting that up, that I was married to this woman called Matilda Bray. I don't know who the lady is, and I don't know if it's still up there. If it is, then obviously I'm gonna have to get my my lawyers back on it, because no, I've never been married and I've never had it.
Okay, so moving on to the second question then, Shaun. one thing that Shaun Wallace regrets?
I have no regrets, because if you go through life regretting, then that means you're clinging on to the past, wanting to change it. No, I've never had any regrets at all. I'm very, very fortunate and grateful for the way how my life's turned out. And I suppose the setbacks have helped forge me to make me the person I am today, because, you learn from your mistakes. Only a fool makes the same mistake twice. So, no, I have no regrets whatsoever.
Fabulous. Thank you very much indeed, Shaun Wallace. Thank you for joining us today. Can I ask you for any closing remarks for the audience that's watching this interview today?
Yeah. Closing remarks I would always say to people is this: you can achieve anything in life. I'm the living exemplar of a person who basically, as a young kid, who thought if I had a fraction of the talent that my heroes, who I used to love, worship, and adore, then my life's going to mean something. Never in a million years. If you were to ask the 11-year-old Shaun Wallace, would he turn out to be one of the most well-known people in the country and was the first Black Mastermind Champion, he'd probably think that this was a Hollywood script. But sometimes Hollywood scripts are real. So that's why I always say to people, don't be frightened to dream. Don't be frightened to achieve, because you can achieve. Life is tough. The profession's tough. It is competitive. But perseverance, determination, resilience, and talent, I'm convinced, will always win through. And if you have the right people who are determined to give you that chance, you will succeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Shaun, for joining us today. Again, just to say, the link to Chasing the Dream is in the description box. Please do click on that link and get Shaun Wallace's autobiography right now. I also want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors for sponsoring this episode. The details for the chambers is also in the description box. So if you require any legal representation, do get in touch with them right away. Thank you again. Thank you so much again, Shaun, for joining us.
Thank you.
There we have it, Mr. Shaun Wallace. What an exceptional guest. Do follow Shaun on all the social media platforms and get your hands on his autobiography, Chasing the Dream, right now. The links are in the description box below. I want to say a huge thank you again to our sponsors, Great James Street Chambers. If you require any legal advocacy in crime, family, extradition, immigration, civil and human rights law, do reach out to them. Email them on clerks@greatjames.co.uk right away. Do make sure to follow Law Simplified on all the social media platforms and head on to our website at www.law-simplified.co.uk to check out our resources. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in. I am your podcast host, Faareen Ali, and I can't wait until I see you on the next one. Thank you and take care.